you playing once? Hello there, my beautiful and handsome listeners. How are you today? How has your day been? Mine has been. I can say. Hello there, my handsome and beautiful viewers. How are you today? How has your day been? Mine has been beautiful because I have got a beautiful mind. You are welcome to your reality talk show, Beautiful Mind. This is the show that says no to stigmas, discriminations, and any judgmental attitude. On this show, we talk about issues that are considered as taboo, that generally, publicly, people do not like to talk about it publicly. And our aim is to let people know that they are not alone and they do not need to suffer in silence because help is readily available. Beautiful Mind believes that everyone deserves love and respect, regardless of their past, their color, their race, their religion, or their education. You are welcome to your reality talk show that wants you to see everyone the way you want to be seen and treated. So you're welcome on board. Why don't you grab yourself a cup of tea, hot chocolate, water, coffee, soup, whatsoever that makes you feel comfortable. Please sit down and come along with us. And if you're coming back from work and you're driving, please drive carefully and do not try to engage whilst you're driving. But you can listen to us on your favorite TV when you're home. Yes, you can join us on our YouTube channel, Beautiful Mind TV, right now as we speak. And whilst you're there, please make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel. Today's show is going to be informative and educative, so please do not go anywhere. And I have got two wonderful guests today that will be helping us today on today's show. And the topic for today's show is domestic abuse. Right, I need to warn you ahead. This is a series, so we're not going to cover everything today. So stay tuned next week as well, so that you can really benefit what we are talking about. Because at the end of this series, we want everybody to be informed, to know where to seek for help, and to know that they don't need to suffer in silence because help is readily available. For the very first time on Beautiful Mind, I have got Ursula in with us, and she'll be helping us on today's show. And yes, all the way from Nigeria, we got Ronke Posh. So she will be helping us on today's show. And the topic is domestic abuse, a pandemic within a pandemic. Right, Ursula, because this is your first time on our show, can you please introduce yourself and to my viewers and my listeners, just for the benefit of those people that are meeting you for the very first time?
Okay, so hi, my name is Ursula Myrie. I am the founder and managing director of Adira, which is a survivor-led mental health and wellbeing service based in Sheffield that supports Black people with mental health issues. That's me in a nutshell.
Laying aside everything today, and to come and bless us. I do really understand and appreciate. I know that we live in a very busy world, so thank you very much for coming to join us this afternoon. I don't know what happened to my other guest, but we seem to have lost it. Please, Ronke, help us join, try to recollect again. We want you to introduce yourself, to our viewers today. Right, my name is Adeyinka Adeomi, and I am your host on this beautiful show that comes live every Wednesday, and we are broadcasting live from the studios of Beam TV, and I can assure you and guarantee you that we are reaching out to all over the world. How do I know that? Because I know that you have got our back and you are helping us to share this video. And whilst we are touching on sharing, why not try and help us share this video today? I know there are a lot of rubbish, there are a lot of jargons, a lot of things we don't want on our wall. But this show, I can guarantee you, is something that you want on your wall. So please, help us share this video, because you might just be setting somebody free today by doing so. Right, I'm going to start with you, Ursula, because we still don't have Ronke I believe she will try to join back. What is your understanding of domestic abuse? When you hear the word domestic abuse, what do you want people to know about it? I know you've experienced it before, but how do you describe it to people so that they will understand the gravity, what we are discussing here this afternoon?
So do you want me to talk about my personal experience or just generally?
Just general, what domestic abuse is.
Domestic abuse is anything where one human being controls another human being, and doesn't allow them to think for themselves, do for themselves. There are so many different types of abuse that wasn't labeled, if you like, years and years ago. Years ago it was just physical abuse. If you said domestic abuse, somebody automatically assumed that it meant somebody was being physically hurt. Where thankfully now we're that much further along, where we know that there are so many different types of abuse. There is physical, there is sexual, there is mental, there is emotional, there is psychological, there is spiritual, there is religious, there is financial. There are so many. There is coercive abuse now, which is one of the latest ones that we now know about. So there are so many different types of abuse that can happen to people. So it's not all physical, and it's not always necessarily easy to spot. Abusers can be very tricky in how they operate. So they can start very, very slowly and build up over time, so that the person who is on the receiving end doesn't even realize that they are in an abusive relationship. And it takes very many different forms. As I said, it's not just physical.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much for that broad definition of domestic abuse. Thank you very much. Now, could you please share your experience of domestic abuse with us?
My experience of domestic abuse, because people always, I think this is another thing we're learning very recently now in the past couple of years, is that it's not just adults who can experience domestic abuse. It's also children can be victims of domestic abuse, whether it's secondhand, so it's them watching their parents abusing each other physically, or they personally have been abused at home, physically, sexually, or emotionally. So my abuse actually started in my childhood. I'm a survivor of historic rape and sexual abuse that began at the age of 2 to 16. I'm also a survivor of physical abuse at the hands of my mother, who used to beat me till my bones broke. She was the one who would actually schedule leaders from the church to come in and rape and abuse me under the guise of they were raping the demons out of me. So by the time I left home at 20, my relationship compass was completely warped in terms of what love should look like and how it should feel. So by the time I got married at 25, I had no tools, absolutely no tools in terms of love and relationships and how to be in a relationship, what was abuse, what wasn't, because as far as I was concerned, violence was love, because that's all I knew. So by the time I met my now ex-husband and married him, bearing in mind, this is something we women, some women often do, is that we will marry for the wrong reasons. So I met him. Within 4 months, I became pregnant, and I did not want to fall into that circle. And I can't emphasize this enough, into that circle of being a single mother and a Black single mother on top of that. I didn't want the triangle, what I call the triangle, the church, the community, and my family to, look down on me. So I married him, even though I knew that, okay, I've not been with this man for long. I don't love him very much. I don't love him at all, actually. So I'll just marry him just so I wouldn't be another statistic. There were what you call, now we refer to it as red flags. We didn't have a word for it back then, but there were a lot of red flags even before I married him, in the sense that his temper and his anger was always very quick, very visible. He's Nigerian, I'm Jamaican, so that was two very explosive cultures coming together. Nigerian men tend to like their women to be very passive. You're very hard pushed to find a passive Jamaican woman, and they tend to like their women very submissive as well. Again, you'll be hard pushed to find a very submissive Jamaican woman. So, you know, those things coming together and clashing. The violence started very early on, very quickly. It was physical violence. I remember him hitting me so hard one day. I honestly thought I was going to pass out. I remember him dragging me downstairs, literally by my hair. The beatings carried on for the 6 years. There was verbal violence as well, where he would just say the most horrific things to me. And it was the lies, it was the psychological games that he would play, and the constant lying. And especially for somebody who, due to the abuse in my childhood, I was, by the time I reached early teens, I had severe mental health issues. So for somebody who already has trauma, unresolved trauma from childhood, and mental health issues, and you know, at that time I was also self-harming a lot, and I was a new mom, there was so much going on. The abuse just impacted it, but there was a part of me that made me feel like, actually, you deserve this, because this is all you know, this is love, so you deserve this. And also, you married a man that, you know, you didn't love, so what did you expect from something like this? And I was so desperate to keep the marriage going that I would have happily stayed in that marriage and let that man beat me to death, rather than leaving the marriage and having my family tell me I told you so, having the church talk about, you know, divorce. We don't do divorce in the church, and you're bringing shame on the church. Rather than have those things happen or have to go through those things, I would have rather let him beat me to death. The reason I ended up leaving was my children were 4 and 6 when we fled domestic violence. And we lived in a refuge for
Ursula,
7 months. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Thank you very much. You know, I really wanted to stop there. We will still come back to you. I believe
Okay.
our other guest is here.
Yeah.
Ronke, can you please introduce yourself, just for the benefit of people that are meeting you for the very first time?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Ronke Posh, and I'm the director at Le Posh School in Parkview Estate in Lagos. I'm also a parent coach. I'm a family life therapist, a neuro-linguistic practitioner, and a mind coach. So I wear many hats.
Wow, thank you. And I love the hat you're wearing it as well this
Thank
afternoon. Thank you very much for laying aside, you know, a lot of things, and you're trying to help us this afternoon. I do really appreciate it. You know, before you joined us back, I don't know, maybe you were able to pick, you know, some things that Ursula was sharing about abuse, you know, the abuse that she went through in the hand of her ex-husband. And she mentioned something about red flags. So Ronke, I really want you to help us this afternoon. What are the red flags that you think people do ignore, you know, when they are in a relationship or at the beginning of a relationship that they should have spotted and say no?
So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. So when we talk about red flags, sometimes the red flags are so subtle you don't know.
Yeah.
There are so subtle abuse.
Right, I think we've lost her again. We can't really hear what she's saying. Ursula, right, what are the red flags that you ignore, you know, when you were about... She's back. I think she's back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was
It's
a
okay.
that was a network thing. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I said that there are some red flags that you don't spot immediately. And some of these abusers are so good at hiding some of their traits that they can be easily overlooked. They can be quite...
All right, I think we have to go to Ursula. Ursula, can you please tell us the signs that you missed, you know, or you ignored?
It's fine. Technology, you know, technology.
Yes.
The signs that I ignored was definitely his temper. You know, you notice when they lose their temper very, very quickly. or it's little things like what you're wearing. It will just be like, oh, you're going out tonight with your friends, yeah, are you wearing that? And at first you don't think anything of it, and they'll say, oh, but I don't want you to wear that because I don't want other men looking at you. And it makes you feel like, oh, he cares, that's why he's saying that, when it's actually, because we know now, I'm not saying all men, who say that, then it's a problem, but little things like that was a sign that, okay, then this is more about you wanting to control me, because it stopped being a question of about what I was wearing and became a question of, why do you have to go out tonight with your friends? Why can't you stay at home with me? And then it escalates from there in terms of the behavior. And I think as well, we are kind of brainwashed by certain churches, by the family, who will tell you to ignore this if it's happening, because it's normal, it's culture, that's our culture. It's fine for your husband to control you in this way. So a lot of women stay because they're afraid of upsetting the family. They're afraid of, they don't want to be told, well, listen, nothing like this has ever happened in our family before, so we don't want you to be the first to leave your husband just because he's beating you, or he's embarrassing you, or it's not the end of the world, so stay. So little things like red flags can be so very, very subtle, and they can come in the form of love. We all know that term, love bombing, where when a new relationship, the man will buy you chocolates and take you out for a meal and spend a lot of money on you and be constantly texting you all day to tell you how much he loves you and how he misses you, and he love bombs you and makes you feel like you are so special. But that's just the way they get you to become dependent on them.
Okay. Thank you very much. I believe Ronke Pot was saying there are some that were so subtle that you wouldn't even know until you are deep into the relationship.
Yes.
So we need to be careful, Thank you very much for sharing that. I believe Sahara on YouTube said usually it is an abusive person that comes to ego, or he feels that there is no justice in the world. Wow, thank you very much. I would really love it if you can expatiate on that. That's a message from our YouTube viewers. Thank you very much. Help us, share this video so that a lot of people will be blessed by it. Right, Ursula, what effect did the abuse have on your mental health?
Oh, Lord. It exasperated it. It made my mental health a lot worse, because I came into the relationship with mental health issues. And this is something I want to say to men and women, because, people always assume that abuse only happens to women. It happens to men as well. If you know that you have issues, get counseling, go to your church leaders. If you have a good church leader, go to them and get some sort of counseling, or go outside and get counseling before you get into a relationship. Because if you get into a relationship where you already have mental health issues and then the person is abusive, that exasperates your mental health issues. And my mental health issues became so bad and so severe as a result of the abuse that many times I tried to take my own life. How many times I would try and get away from him and from the marriage, and if I had the strength to at times, I would kick him out of the house just to protect my own sanity. I ended up getting sectioned a few times in that time period, and he would, when I would be sectioned, he would not come and visit me, because him being Nigerian, his argument would be, well, if I come on the wards there, because we in the African Caribbean community, we see mental health as demonic possessions or voodoo or witchcraft. So he would say, oh, I can't visit you on the ward because there are demons on there that will get into me. So he wouldn't even come and visit me when I would get that bad. My mental health would get that bad that I would have a breakdown and have to be sectioned. He would wait till I came home and then repeat the cycle of abuse. So it had a devastating impact on my mental, emotional, physical, psychological well-being. And I just want to add this. Some women, people, when they're struggling with mental and emotional well-being, they do one of two things. They either overeat or they don't eat. So they become anorexic. When somebody becomes anorexic, society wakes up, because there's a lot of things in place for people who are anorexic because of an emotional or mental or psychological problem. When you are obese, because you eat your pain. You eat and you eat and you eat to fill that hole, that void, that pain that is inside you. And you put on that weight. People just say, oh, she's fat because she's greedy. She's fat because she's lazy. She's fat because she eats too much. They don't assert the same importance to people who
Thank you.
eat because they're in pain as they do to people who don't eat because they're in pain.
Thank
And
you.
for me, in the
Thank
marriage,
you.
I was overeating because I was in so much pain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ursula. You know, you said quite a lot of things from just that short, expression of you there. And I really, really want our viewers to be coming along with us on this show. You know, this is the beginning. We're still going to discuss about mental health and religion. We're going to discuss about our culture. You know, you're telling us now that your ex-husband wouldn't want to come to hospital because he believed he would be possessed even by
Yes.
these demons that are walking in the hospital ward. Wow, that is quite deep. But today is not about the cultural beat and the spiritual aspect of it. Today is just for the mental health side of things and how it does affect children. So when you were going through this, you said something now that you were craving for food and the only thing that you do is just to eat and you eat.
Yeah.
Do you think, or would you say that those people that are condemning you at that period, would you say they quite understand or understood what you were going through?
Most definitely not. And I'll tell you why. Let's start with the triangle. So let's start with the church in the triangle. When my ex-husband was beating me, and I would go to my pastor, who was a Pentecostal minister at the time, and explain to him that my husband was beating me, that man would get the Bible and so my sister, this scripture says a wife must be more submissive to her husband. Do you think your husband is beating you because you're not submissive enough to him? So maybe you should go home and submit yourself more to your husband, and then he won't beat you. And come, let us pray, let us fast more, but stay in the marriage, and that in itself is a dangerous thing to tell. So many women have died because they've been told by their churches to stay in the marriage. But then I also had a mother, bearing in mind she was very abusive. She would also encourage my ex-husband to beat me, to control me. And I think that was a way, because I was an adult now, she couldn't beat me anymore like she could when I was a child. So she was trying to control me through my ex-husband. So she would encourage him to beat me to keep me under control.
Ursula. You know, she's seen a lot about the religion aspect of it, and we have a show that is actually dedicated for that. And in fact, we're going to bring a pastor, because I don't understand why a pastor will ask you to stay in an abusive, a violent environment. You know, I don't think it's good for anybody, but that's my own opinion. I'm not here to judge anybody or to pass any comment, on anybody. But I really want to hear your views, viewers. Please, have you ever been told that you have to go and submit more? It's because you're not patient enough. It's because of this. It's because of that. What are the reasons that you've been given? I really want to hear from you. Thank God we have Ronke Posh back. Yes, Ronke Posh. What are the effects, of domestic abuse on children? I know you're a teacher, you deal with children. What are the effects, or do you think children can stay in an abusive environment? Rocket Posh, can you hear us? We can't hear you, Ronke. On, Ronke, please. We can't hear you. Connect your sound. Can you hear us? Wow. Right. I believe today Ursula is going to help us all through. So what are the effects? Did you have any children or child in for your ex-husband, and what do you see as the effect on them?
Yeah, I had two children. I have two children. They were, when I left my ex-husband, they were 4 and 6, and that was the reason I ended up leaving,
Leaving.
because they were beginning to, he would never abuse the children. It was always me, but they would see things, they would hear things, they would hear the violence. Sometimes when I would kick him out of the house, he would come to the house in the early hours of the morning, trying to break in, trying to break down the doors, and the children would wake up out of their sleep, scared and screaming, not knowing what's going on, what's happening, why is daddy trying to do this? So it began to have a psychological effect on them. They wouldn't sleep at night. They started to play up at school and at nursery, in the school, and the nursery would call me, and to have a parents meeting and say, Miss Myrie, is anything going on at home, because we've noticed a change in the children's behavior. And that for me was a wake-up call. And now my children are 21 and 23, and
Wow.
we left London when they were 4 and 6. And if you ask my children about London, they can remember nothing. Absolutely, they have no memory of living in London, being raised in London. And I believe that that's trauma, because when they think about London, it makes them think about the things that their father did, or they experienced, or they saw, or they heard. So they've completely blocked it out of
Block
their
that out of
memory.
it. Wow.
And that is the
Wow.
impact of domestic
It
violence
is.
on children, and it follows them into childhood, which is why I've personally said to my children, before you get married, go to counseling. Whether it's individual counseling or you and your husband together, go to counseling, because it might not be till you're married that the effects of what you witnessed as a child in terms of domestic violence will not come out until you're married. It might be something that your then husband says or does, triggers you, and you won't even understand where that trigger is coming from or why. So it's so important for our children who have lived through or suffered through or had domestic violence to get themselves counseling.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. What she's saying is we have to think about the future of our children. You want your child to grow up and to be able to remember their childhood experience.
Yeah.
But, our children can't really say much about their childhood. So we really need to be careful when we're saying, I am staying in this marriage because of my children. Are you truly? We need to ask ourselves that question. And even if you are, what do you think your children will remember of their childhood? We need to ask ourselves this honest truth. Right, Ronke, I believe you're back. Can you hear us loud and clear?
I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me, and I hope you can hear me now.
Oh, that's good. So it's a shame. It's a shame.
Can you hear me now?
Right. Yes, I can hear you.
Super.
Right, somebody is asking, Ronke, is it abuse if one of the marriage partner controls the finances and refuses to let the other know about it? Is
Yes,
it
that's
an abuse?
yes, it is a form of abuse. It's even one of the official types of abuse. It's called financial abuse. So when you're in a relationship, there should be some transparency when it comes to the finances. There should be an agreement of how you choose to spend the money. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. You have a situation where the partners are running things independently. But if both parties are financially capable, then it's fine. But if one has and it's withholding from the other, and that one is suffering as a result, then it is financial abuse.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I love that. That was so straightforward and no Connie. I love something Sub-Sahara wrote on YouTube. She said, religious people are unprofessional in these matters. They know how to make peace in the family. That does not help. I don't understand. They know. Maybe he or she wanted to say, they don't know how to make peace in the family, that it does not help. Well, I believe they know how to make peace, but sometimes we need to seek professional help when it comes to domestic abuse. If your pastor doesn't have that qualification or has not gone for counseling in the past. So I believe you just need to ask. Thank you very much, Ronke. I have another question for you. What are the signs or symptoms and behavior that you will notice or that will show that a child is being abused or in an abusive environment? As a teacher, how do you spot it?
Okay, so if you have a child that behaves normally and is a typically happy child, and then all of a sudden you find that the child is withdrawn, then you need to begin to pay attention to the child. Sometimes they lose their confidence, they lose their appetite, they're not playing, they're fearful. You find that even the teens, their self-esteem is being eroded. They might lose their appetite, they may not eat as much, they may not play, they may be withdrawn, keeping secrets, being very fearful. Those are the typical signs that you'll see in children when there's a case of abuse. And some of them start to even tell lies. But when you ask them what's up, they start making up all sorts of stories. So you begin to pay attention and try to find out if anything is going on.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. And sometimes they believe some of them want to be isolated. When other children are playing, they will rather want to be alone and not to, play with other children. They look withdrawn. Even without them talking, they look withdrawn. They don't look happy most of the time. And sometimes they've said some of them even have to pass urine out unknowingly, without anything. They just wee on themselves, and you just wonder what is going on, just to say that how terrified that child is or might be. So we need to be careful, and we need to look out for all these children. You might be thinking, it's not my child, I don't need to care, but we all ourselves that responsibility. Right, Ursula, I'm coming back to you. Some women, I have had the privilege of interview, have said to me that they lost their confidence, when they were in their abuse. They lost their self-confidence. They don't believe in themselves. They felt depressed and even felt suicidal.
Yeah.
Did you experience any of this at some point in your life when you were, in the abusive environment?
Oh, I did. My God. I told you I became suicidal. I had suicide attempts. I had breakdowns because my depression of being in a marriage where, I with a man that I didn't love who was so violent to me. It had a massive impact on my self-esteem, on my confidence. I put on so much weight because, as I said before, I was eating my pain. I remember when I moved out of the relationship and moved to London, we were moved to Sheffield. We were moved here by police and social services about 15 years ago. And I was in a session with a therapist, and he asked me the strangest question. And he said to me, "Why do you always dress in black?" And I said, "What are you talking about? I don't." And he said, because I saw him every week for months. And he said, "Every time you come to my session, you are dressed in black." And I said, "Don't be silly." And it was only when I went home and looked in my wardrobe, everything was black. My crops, my shirts, my trousers, my dresses, everything was black. And I went back to him the following week and I said, "Oh my God, everything in my wardrobe is black. I hadn't even noticed." And I said, why is that?" And he said, first time I'd ever heard this, he said, "You're in mourning. You're mourning for the marriage you lost and the life you lost, and the life that you've had up to now. You're in mourning for it. And that is why you dress in black." And that said to me that was so deeply psychologically ingrained. I didn't even become aware that my entire wardrobe was just black clothes. That showed the impact that the violence had been having on me mentally and psychologically, to the point where I would go into a shop and buy something black over and over again and not even realize that I was doing it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's the first time I'm actually, seeing it from that perspective. I've never heard it from that angle before. When you're always in a black wardrobe. I know some people will say, "I love wearing black," but sometimes we need to ask ourselves, we need to be real with ourselves.
Yes.
Why are we wearing black?
Yes.
Are we actually mourning? Some people are actually mourning their marriages before they're actually out of that marriage. And we need to be careful. Wow, that is quite deep. So how were you able to come out of it? This is the lesson we want people to be able to take away from here today. How did you gain your confidence back?
I came out of it simply because when I realized that it was starting to affect my children, because I was one of those women who had that mentality that, oh, I'm going to stay for the children because I don't want to raise them in a broken home, and I don't want to take them away from their father because he's only beating me, he's not beating them. But when I realized that the mental and psychological effect it was starting to have on the children, that's when I said, oh God, no, 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 because I didn't want my children growing up thinking this is marriage, because my mother was in an abusive relationship and my grandmother was in abuse. So I wanted to be the one to break the cycle for the sake of my children. So that was when I said to my husband, that's it, I want to leave. I can't do this anymore. And that was when he tried to kill me. 3 times. He tried to kidnap the children twice to remove them to Nigeria. And back then,
Wow.
you're going back 20 years, domestic violence wasn't taken as seriously then as it is now. So we had restraining orders against him that he kept breaking. So the police then said, you know what, you have to move. Which, wasn't fair, but I had to move. So the police and social services moved us very quickly and very quietly and very privately one day from Sheffield to London. And it took many, many years, multiple breakdowns, constantly self-harming, suicidal thoughts, on antidepressants, before I could learn to come out of that. And I want to say to any women who are in that relationship and are thinking of leaving, we're very quick in society as a triangle, church, the community, and family, to, say, oh, just leave him. Why don't you just leave? It's that simple. It's not that simple. Because the most dangerous time for any woman in a domestic violence relationship is when she decides to leave. Because I remember my ex-husband telling me that he'd rather see me dead, than leave him. So it's the most dangerous time. So it's not a matter of telling a woman just leave, because when she leaves, are you going to take her in? Are you going to take her children in? Or if she has to go into a refuge, are you going to support her with that? Are you going to go and drive her and pick her up from the house when the husband is standing there threatening murderous violence? Are you going to stand between the two of them to protect her and her children? Are you going to risk your life? So it's not a case of just leave. It has to be done in a way that works for that woman. She has to be first
Wow.
mentally,
Thank you.
emotionally, and psychologically strong enough to leave before she can be physically strong enough to leave.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I listened to one, I can't remember where I got it from. And when I thought about it, I felt that was really, really good. You have to have an exit plan.
Yes.
You just don't jump into
No.
doing anything, but you have to have an exit plan. What are your plans? What
Yeah.
is it? What are you going to fall back on? Who is going to be your support system? Who
Yeah.
is going to be there for you 24/7, emotionally, financially, and physically, being there, telling you it is okay? So please, before you actually take that step, make sure that you have those plans in place. Thank you very much for sharing that with us this afternoon. Right, Ronke Posh, quite a lot of people have indicated that, during this lockdown, that they have gone through a lot of abuse. You know, so how can people, I really wanted to know that, how can people be safe even in their own environment during this lockdown? Especially when they are living with their abuser.
Well, unfortunately, you can't be safe living with an abuser. It's like saying that can you be safe in a jungle where there are wild animals? It's
I
you're
love
never
that.
going to be safe living with an abuser. And as we know, there are different kinds of abuse. So even if a person is not, because women also abuse men, even if the person is not physically abusive, they can be emotionally, psychologically abusive, verbally abusive, sexually abusive, which can be just as traumatic, which can be just as horrible. So anyone that is being abused is not safe living with an abuser. There's no safety in it.
I can't seem to hear her again. Right. Ursula, I'm going to come back to you. I have heard that women are likely to endure domestic violence if they are benefiting financially, from the man. Is that always the case? Because they believe, I don't know why some people believe or have this assumption that women love money. And once money is involved, they don't mind.
I do find with our community, we can sometimes be uncomfortable with the truth. We only want to hear the good things and the amazing things about our community, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have some incredibly strong, level-headed women who can stand on their own. They own their own house and they have their own jobs, and that's all amazing. But we also know that we do have some women, and this isn't a blanket statement, we do have some women in the community. In Jamaica, we say they're licky licky. It just means that they have a love of money, and sometimes it goes back to how they were raised in poverty, so they are willing to tolerate anything to keep that status, if you want to call it. He's beating me, but he buys me Gucci, he buys me Armani, he buys me this, he pays my bills, he pays for my weave, he pays for my phone, he pays for all these things. So they will tolerate the violence for the physical things that they are getting. And another thing as well is a lot of people who are in domestic violence relationships will have this belief that I can change him, I can change her, I can love the abuse out of them, I can be patient, and if I love him enough, he will stop, he will change, he will so he will stay in it for those reasons. But also I want to speak to older people, because I'm 48, so I want to speak to the generation that came before me. You have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and I know in certain African cultures we will say it's better to have a dead child than a divorced child. That's not helpful. It's a dangerous thing to say, to make your child feel like you won't love them if they leave the relationship or if they leave the marriage, because it's violent, because you as the mother or the father don't want the shame of saying your child is divorced. So sometimes we stay for those reasons. It's not just about what the man is giving us, it's also cultural aspects of it. And I don't want to disappoint my parents, I don't want to shame my parents, I don't want to bring shame on my church. So these things are all things that women consider when they stay in a domestic violence relationship.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ursula, for sharing that with us. I believe Ronke is back now. Ronke, so why do you think it is so difficult for people? I've sat down here and I've heard what Ursula had to say, what she went through in the house and of her abuser. Why is it so difficult for people to leave an abusive environment, even when they know that the child might end up becoming an abuser themselves? Why do they still? Why can't they leave?
Okay, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So it's often a difficult task because the victim or the abused is still often in love with the abuser. And they love the good times. They believe that things are going to get better. They continue to have faith that things are going to get better. People tell them to endure, and so they do. Society tells them that they should endure, they do. Their friends tell them that they should endure, and they do. And then there's the shame that society brings. It's not shameful to leave an abusive relationship. You're actually a hero if you're able to save yourself and your children. But that is not the way it's often viewed by the society, by the church. A lot of people are judged, and so they are afraid to leave. And as Ursula has already said, finance. A lot of women depend on the men. They are not able to look after themselves and the children. If they leave, they don't know how they're going to cope. So they feel the need that they should continue to endure the abuse.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I understand you're saying, you've told us the reasons why a lot of women would not want to leave. So will you advise that people should take their children out, at least if they want to remain in the environment, thinking they're going to change their husband, thinking he's going to love them, thinking with patience it will come around, thinking with submission everything will come in shape? Will you advise that people take the children out of such environment if they think it's not safe? Or should they stay with their children and continue to pray and believe in that the abuser will change? Okay.
If you take your children out of an abusive relationship and stay in it, you see, action speaks louder than words. You're still teaching the children that it's okay to stay with someone that abuses them. So the child would most likely repeat that pattern. They would stay in an abusive relationship and might get killed in that abusive relationship because mommy stayed or daddy stayed in the abusive relationship. So I personally will not recommend it. However, there are different kinds of abuse and there are different levels of abuse. Some people are abusive towards their partners and they are not conscious of it. Yes, some people are emotionally abusive towards their partners. Say, for example, some people will withhold sex from their partners. Some people will withhold money from their partners. They are not conscious that it's an abuse. If it's brought to their attention and they get professional help, they're able to overcome that kind of abuse and that type of control. So there are different levels. Some can be addressed. However, not everything can be like if it's physical abuse that the man or woman continuously does. I will not encourage one to endure. But there's a time of long suffering. There's a time where a man or a woman might be going through midlife crisis or going through something in their life, and they are responding in to that trauma or that issue of life and taking it out on their partner. Now, if that partner is mentally and emotionally aware and mature, they might recognize these signs and say, okay, I will help him or her through this process. He may not want to give money. She may not want to have sex at this point in time. This may be happening at this time. I will endure for this period of time. And with support, they might be able to get over it. So it really depends on where and how the abuse is happening.
Wow.
So I don't want to give an answer.
I love,
It's not a yes or no
yes,
answer. Let's put it that way.
yes, I understand that perfectly. But I love the beat that you introduced, the midlife crisis. And we don't talk about this enough. I don't even think a lot of people have the understanding and they don't even know how to cope or how to go through it, when their spouse is going through this midlife crisis. Thank you very much, Ronke, for sharing that with us. And Ursula, study shows that lonely is worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is worse than smoking 15 cigarettes in a day. So that is why a lot of people find themselves staying in an abusive environment. So what have you got to say to people that are afraid of being lonely or starting all over again and they rather remain in an abusive relationship?
You can't be lonely if you're dead. And that could be such a consequence of staying in that relationship. There is nothing on this earth worth your sanity, worth your life, for you to say, oh, do you know what, because I don't want to be lonely, I'm going to stay in this relationship. Because I want my children to have a male figure, I'm going to stay in this relationship. And I think sometimes we as society, we can be very cruel, because as soon as somebody leaves a relationship for whatever reason, and then they say, oh, they start talking to their friends and they say, oh, I'm really lonely. I wish I could be with somebody. We jump on them because we automatically assume, oh, is this about sex? Oh, so you're missing sex? Is that's what? And it's a case of, no, people forget that you can be in a relationship and have lots and lots of intimacy without it being about sex. We're not made of wood. We are human beings. Intimacy doesn't necessarily mean sex. And so when somebody says, I'm lonely, it's not necessarily the sex they're missing. It's just that I'm lonely for having somebody to talk to. When the kids have gone to bed, or somebody to share my meal with, or somebody to go for a walk with. And it's just having that makes us feel like, I am lonely. So I don't want to be lonely, so let me stay in the relationship. Or they see their friends who have left the relationships, and the friend is always moaning about how unhappy they are and how sad they are and how lonely they are, when there are so many things that we can do to fill our day. There are so many organizations out there that you can turn to find things to do. Throw throw yourself into your children, throw yourself into exercise, throw yourself into doing something that you enjoy doing, whether it's art or running, or find a support group in your local area. There are so many things that you can do to combat that sense of loneliness.
Thank you very much. And you know, I believe strongly that loneliness can be a state of the mind as well. It might not be like you're physically lonely,
Yes.
but because I've heard people say they're in the midst of people, you know, in a room full of people, but
Yes.
they still find themselves being lonely. So sometimes it can be a state of the mind. Just like Ursula said, you know, engage yourself in activities, find something to do, and that might occupy your mind, because if you are still alive, that is when you can think or
Yes.
feel that loneliness. When you are in the grave, you will be lonely anyways. So think about that. Right, Ronke Posh, I usually hear people use this word a lot. And this afternoon, I really want you to help us shed light on the meaning of it. What does they mean when they say, and marriage is to be endured and not to, is to be endured and not to be enjoyed? What's that? I really want to understand. Marriage is to be enjoyed, not to be endured. But some people, a lot of people are enduring their marriage. They're not actually enjoying it. Because I've asked, you know, I've done like statistics, asking people questions, and a lot of people will tell me, no, I don't really enjoy it, but they are saying they're enjoying. So what have you got to say? Right. Okay, I believe we can't get access to her at the moment. So Ursula, can you help us with that question? Marriage, what does it mean that marriage is to be enjoyed, not to be endured?
I think that again comes from the older generation. And it's that culture thing it comes under, you know. You're not there to enjoy the marriage, you're there to serve your husband. Marriage is not meant to be enjoyed. Sex is not meant to be enjoyed in the marriage, you know. And it's so not true. Marriage is something, it can be the most beautiful union of two people, and it's not about enduring, because then that's not a marriage. How can you possibly enjoy something where it's almost like drinking stale milk every day of the week? You know, you cannot possibly enjoy that. So marriage isn't meant to be endured and you suffer, and you know, because that's not what God would want for us. That's not what the Bible teaches us. So to say marriage should be endured as opposed to enjoy, I really think that comes from, you know, a generational thing where our grandparents were married, and we have a saying in Jamaica where you'd see, your mother would see that her husband's face in every child in the community, and not be able to say anything, because she knew that that was his son, and that was his son, and that was his daughter, because he's been cheating on her. But you know, she stays in the marriage because it's, as you say, to be endured. And I think as well why we endure marriages, especially in the Black communities, because we have this thing with gossiping. And we have this thing with finger pointing, you know, and we don't want the woman across the road to know that, you know, I'm having problems in my marriage, because she's going to gossip about me.
True, yeah.
She's going to gossip about me. Or the people in the church who can be sometimes the worst gossips than outside. You know, they're going to talk about me. So that's why we endure the marriage, because, and as well as if we marry somebody who the church or the community or the family warned us, he's not a good man, she's not a good woman, and then we go and marry them, the one thing we don't want to hear is that sentence, I told you so. We go to extraordinary lengths to avoid hearing that sentence, I told you so. I'm gonna stay in the marriage and endure, so I don't hear you saying I told you so, because I don't want to admit that you were right and I was wrong.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. I love that ending beat. And a lot of women are so scared of hearing those words.
Yes.
I told you so. I've warned you against this man. I told you he's not the man you think he is. You know, a lot of us are afraid to hear those words.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And you kept on saying something, the older woman and the younger woman. You know, I believe I'm going to do something, because I believe strongly in what you're saying this afternoon as well. I believe our old women should be coming out now to tell us the truth about what they went through in their marriages, because a lot of them just let us believe that marriage is easy and you will get it, just like that. But they don't really tell us the truth,
No.
So thank you very much, for sharing that with us this afternoon. And you're opening my eyes to another show that I'm going to be able to do. I believe Ronke Posh is back with us. Ronke Posh. Stigmatization is a significant factor among the African community. It is the reason why many are suffering in silence. And some people believe that it does happen even in the church. In fact, this person that I spoke to said to me, it happens more in the religious settings.
Yes.
What do you have to say about this?
Well, stigmatization is there, and it will be there for quite a while, until people are more aware, on more understanding of abuse in marriage. If someone is being abused and decides to leave, they would have to, put on their big boy pants, put on their big girl pants, pull up their socks. Tongues will wag. They will definitely wag. So you're just going to have to deal with it and do what is best for you and just ignore critics. That is what you're going to have to do. But people will talk in the church as well, especially in the church. A lot of people actually change churches. They move their churches. They go to another church when after a breakup in their marriage.
Thank you. I love something that Sub-Sahara said on YouTube. He said sometimes the most important thing is information for the women, about domestic violence. And I believe it's not just for the women, it's for everybody. That is why we're doing this awareness, so that every one of us will know about domestic violence. A lot of things happen behind closed doors that you don't even want to imagine what other women are going through. You don't want to start imagining what people are going through in their homes. And that is what we need to be doing, this awareness. And if you haven't shared this video, please help us share this video this afternoon, because I believe there is somebody out there that needs to hear about it. Somebody that needs to turn their life into a new shape, that they're just looking for that help. Right. Can victims of domestic violence or abuse still reach out for help during this lockdown, Ursula? And how can they do that, if you can please help?
Yeah, there are a lot of domestic abuse helplines, support services that are out there. If you just type into Google domestic abuse support services, there are so many of them will come up. And thank God for, the fact that Black people have pushed and pushed and pushed over the years, because now these services are understanding the need for culturally appropriate services. It's not just about having a domestic abuse service, but it's about culturally appropriate, culturally sensitive, culturally competent services out there for people of color or from people who are from non-white communities. So there is a lot of help out there. There are women's refuges that will take you in. There are services that will work with you if you feel like you're not quite ready to leave that domestic violence relationship. They won't rush you. They won't force you. They will work with you and support you. The police now have more training to recognize what I call hidden signs of abuse. So even if they knock the door and the woman's got black eye, she's saying, "I'm fine," they won't just walk away now. So there are a lot of services and help out there for people who are fleeing or considering fleeing domestic violence.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have any kind of support like that in Nigeria as well, Ronke Posh?
Not as extensively as they do in the UK, but it does exist. There's the Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team, Alausa in Ikeja. There's the Family Systems Engineering, the CCR. There are quite a number of them here, but not as much as and as easily available as you would have in the UK, but they do exist in Nigeria.
Thank you. Right, Ursula now. I really want you started it when you were sharing your story, but I wanted you to say it at the end. So can you please share with us now how you were able to come out of that environment that you found yourself?
Yeah,
How were you able?
as I said, I was moved by police and social services when I made the decision to leave my ex-husband. We were moved here by police and social services, moved to Sheffield, and it was when I moved here that I was in counselling, and I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And that diagnosis enabled me, because I went home and Googled it. I didn't know what it was, and I just tick, tick, tick. That's me. That's me. That's me. And having that diagnosis, because sometimes we fear things like that in the Black community. You know, we see this as white men's diagnosis, but having that diagnosis enabled me to know, okay, this is what's wrong with me. This is the cause, but this is what I can do to make my life better from here. So yes, we can rely on services, and we can rely on counseling and all these things, but sometimes it's a case of the buck stops with you. You have to look within yourself, find within yourself a way to pick yourself up, because nobody else can do it for you. To say, okay, I went through that, but that was in the past. And so I'm here now in the present. What can I do to make my future better? I can't keep dwelling and thinking about what happened in the past and how he did me and how his family did me. I'm here now. What can I do to make my future better, my children's better, life better, to turn my life around, and find something within yourself to be able to push towards that goal.
Wow. Wow. What Ursula is sharing with us this afternoon is you have to come to a point where you are ready to do it, because it can be a lonely walk. It can be really, really tiring. You can find yourself as if there is nobody there, but don't feel so. It's only in your head, because help is available. She's mentioned the help before. But before you can actually say, I want to embark on this journey, I want to come out, you must be ready yourself. Nobody will have to tell you. Don't leave because a friend asks you to leave.
Yeah.
Don't leave because your parents ask you to. Because when you come out, you must be thinking you still want to go back. But you have to leave when you have gotten to that stage when you know that you can't continue to live in such environment. And that is when you will know that you are ready to go on the journey. And remember again, you are not alone. Help is readily available. Please, if you have been affected by everything that we've discussed here today, I want you to know that you can contact myself, you can contact Ursula as well, you can contact every Ronka Posh in Nigeria, and I know she mention allows, so she will signpost you to where you can get help. And here as well in UK, we will contact Beautiful Mind and we will signpost you to the right support. I believe Ursula as well will signpost you to the right support that will help you. Please do not suffer in silence. Remember that this is a series. This is a series that we're going to be doing for a few weeks. So please join us next week again, where we'll be looking at another aspect of domestic violence. We want to say thank you to Near Neighbor for sponsoring this session. We say thank you to everything. I believe somebody is writing something, but I can't see. Right. Angela Browns made it to the show. Thank you. It's really nice to see you today. Esther, thank you very much for joining us. Miracle Great, thank lovely people for this presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. I do really appreciate it. Please help us share this video. If you're watching on YouTube as well, you can share this video. You're watching on Facebook, please help us share this video, because I believe we've said some things that might help somebody out there today. We don't want anybody suffering in silence. The lockdown is not locking the services down. The services are still working and they will support you. And nobody's going to ask you to leave your marriage until you are ready. Right. Ronke, do you have any advice that you want to give to the ladies or to people watching? Because I know men as well do go through domestic violence or abuse. So do you have any word that you want to share with them?
Okay. So what I would say is we should learn to identify the signs and also understand that in every marriage there will be challenges, and there is a fruit of the spirit which is called long suffering. That is not to say you should accept physical abuse. However, learn the signs so you know when you're able to walk through with a partner, or when you need professional help, or when you need to exit.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ronka. Right. Ursula, what will your advice be to our viewers and listeners this afternoon?
I would say, if you are in a domestic violence relationship, as you said at the intake, don't listen to friends, family. Leave when it's safe for you to leave. Leave when you're ready to leave. Those of you who have left and who are struggling, whether it's with that loneliness, you miss him, you're thinking of going back, you're worried about, how the children uh, are coping. Everything begins with you because it all falls on you. And I say to people, listen, we upgrade everything in our lives. We upgrade our houses. We want a bigger house. We want a bigger car. We want a younger wife. We want a younger husband. If you're going to upgrade something, upgrade your self-care. Yeah, spend that extra 5 minutes. If you spend 10 minutes in the bath, spend another 5 and spend 15. If you go for a 5-minute walk and it's not enough, go for a 20-minute walk. Upgrade your self-care because it starts and ends with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All our ladies are saying this afternoon, or what I will be sharing with us or leaving with us is, you are the most important person on this planet. So please look after you. Because if you don't look after you, no one else will. And you are the CEO of your body, of your own life. So please look after that life. You have a purpose to achieve on this planet. So please think about a beautiful future for yourself and think about your life. What is it? I know some people will say, I'm in an abusive relationship because of my children. But I can tell you, even you are the most important person. I know your children are important, but it is when you're alive that is when you can look after your children. That is when those children will call you mommy or call you daddy. If you're not there, they won't be able to do so. So please look after you. And if you are abusing another person, probably because you've been through it yourself and you don't know any way better, please, again, there is help available for you. There is, you can go for counseling, for therapies, you know. Please don't suffer in silence. Don't say because my father was an abuser, I have to be an abuser. You can be the change. You can stop it because you don't want your children to continue in that pattern. So please seek for help. And again, there's some things that a lot of people do, or because everybody is like, being single is raining now, is the in thing. I want to be single, and you're trying to do everything to be single. Again, please think about it twice before you do it. We've said it this afternoon. It's not easy to be alone. So always think about that. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of today's show. Until next week. But before we go, I really want to let you know that we have, we're giving something out to people that are being affected by this show. If we, anything at all that we said today and you can relate with it, that means maybe due to COVID-19, your spouse left or is in the hospital, or you're divorced, you're a single mother right now, we are giving out something this Sunday, this February, just to give you that hope, just to put a smile on your face. And it is called Cheer Box. So we want to cheer it up. So please get in contact with us on 079 603 91983 to get your own gift. We want to give you something to put a smile on that your beautiful face. So please do get in contact with us. Thank you very much, Ursula. Thank you. I do really appreciate you. I'm going to contact you again and we're going to do something again. Thank you very much, Ronke Posh, all the way from Nigeria. Wow. Anytime I'm in Nigeria, I would definitely come and give you a hug.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. for
Thank you.
everything that you've done. This is not the first time you've been on this show, but I do really appreciate you. I want to say thank you to my producer, AY the Ambassador. Thank you for putting all of this together. And we have free mask as well. Please do get in touch if you need free mask. You live around 11 June Garden alongside. We have free masks that we are giving to people. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel whilst you're there. Thank you very much. I want to say I love you. And until next week, when I will be bringing another informative and educative talk show your way. I remain your host, Adeyinka Adeomi. Bye for now.